you've got to be able to have coaching moments. You literally have to be honest as a default. You have to be truthful. You have to be inspiring. But you've got to be able to make sure that you can have the kinds of conversations that create learning, that create improvement. Right?
Right.
It's when you start training camp at the beginning of a season, you don't expect everything to be worked out as much as you would as you get towards the later end of the season in the playoffs. The same thing is true organizationally. You need to be able to coach them up. Coaching them up does not mean just being the cheerleader or the critic. It means drawing out in them the very best, helping them see what they may not see, helping them understand what is versus what could be, and closing the gap. Hey, I'm Chris Steer, and you're listening to the Art and Science of Leadership podcast. So welcome, the show where we break down what it really takes to lead with care, clarity, and connection. This podcast is built around what we can learn from neuroscience, organizational data, lived experience, and timeless wisdom when it comes to the art and science of leadership, so that you can not only grow and learn, but also bring your teams and your organizations to a higher level. We're all about permanent beta, always learning and never done growing. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another edition of the Art and Science of Leadership podcast. Once again, joined by my kindred spirit in leadership, Amy Larkin. And we're just so pleased to share some of our perspective, share some of our crystallized intelligence, some of our just learning around the topic of leadership, especially as it relates to the science of it, which is also driven by neuroscience, by behavioral science, but also the art of it, which is the humanity, the things that makes leadership so enduring, wonderful, and challenging is the art, because that's the human-centric aspect of it. So, Amy, welcome, my friend. Let's get after it today.
Happy to be here. As always, Chris, it's been a hot minute, but we're back.
It has been.
And what a great topic we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Nothing better than driving performance through others.
Right on, right on. And therein lies a sneak peek into our focus today. And Amy and I, we've been talking about this every day because we talk to our clients about this. Results through others. Build the bench, win the game. And this is so relevant. It's actually where we see most organizations fall down in their goals for sustainable growth is because they're not getting results through others. So, Amy, you and I have seen this even just recently, right? Especially when there is a clear vision, a clear plan, we're measuring the right things, we have got things in a clarified state as it relates to a strategic plan and a vision, then it becomes so much about getting the results through other people, often the most challenging aspect of leadership.
You're exactly right. And you know, this is such a subject that's important to what we do every day, but also I can relate to so personally, right? Have always been the type of person that, you know, sometimes it's just easier as a leader to do it yourself because you know it's going to get done in the time frame that you want. You know it's going to get done exactly the way that you want it. But you're exactly right, Chris. It can ultimately stunt the growth of an organization and hold everyone back, including the leader themselves. Yeah. You know, I think this, as in everything that we do, we love to take it back to the field or the court, right? And
right on.
You think about sport, right? Coaches don't win the championships. They coach the teams that win the championships. So if you think about that in terms of business and leadership, right? How do you build trust, right? Confidence, and begin to empower your team? And that really starts with development, leaning in. Right. And, you know, I think that self-reflection is such an important first step in that, right? Ask yourself the question as a leader, do you know your team?
Mm-hmm.
Do you? Do you know the name of their family members? Do you know their hobbies? Are you leaning in to get to know them, right? Because ultimately they want to feel like they're part of the bigger picture and the bigger equation.
Right.
And the more you can build that trusted relationship, the more you're going to get out of them ultimately.
Absolutely. And when you reference the easier to do it yourself as the leader, we see this often in terms of we deem that to be, or we coined the phrase of high performer syndrome, which is, well, I can do it myself because that's what I've always done. And we can't scale that. We can't scale that in leadership. So you've effectively touched on the first aspect that we have seen in building our own internal rubric or process around getting results through others. And you said it beautifully. Like, number one, it's go within. Mm-hmm. Before you are trying to get the result through others, through your team, you have to go within first. You have to look within to say, what energy am I bringing to this? What bias am I bringing to this opportunity or challenge? Am I fully informed on the topic? What don't I know? So immediately, it always goes within first, right?
Yeah.
That is step one. And you address that really well. The second piece of this, and Amy, you can speak into this as well, especially given the sports metaphor that you shared with us, but it's like the clarity of expectation, the clarity of accountability, the clarity of role, the clarity of mission, right? And using, I think you've set us up beautifully for a conversation around a playbook, right? Around a team executing on the game plan in the game itself.
That's right. The other thing, going back to, step one, self-reflection, looking inward, I think that there's a bit of vulnerability that every great leader has, right? Because you have to be okay with hiring people that could outpace you eventually, right? Could replace you ultimately,
right.
And that are smarter than you, right? The best leaders bring in people who are able to help them grow in areas that they've been outpaced in, right? That's how the best organizations ultimately are crafted. And how do you make yourself smarter, right? It goes back to everything we talk about every day, Chris, is, always learning, always challenging yourself. A lot of times you don't have to look very far, right? You should just be learning from the team that's around you. And at the same time, being able to support them. And that also starts with an incredible, strong foundation of vision, mission, values. What do you stand for as an organization and as a brand? Where are you going, right? And what are the behaviors that are expected each and every day out of your team? That represents who you are as a brand, but directly as the leader of that organization.
That's right. Yeah. And well said. And I want to pull through your metaphor of, players win championships, right? And when we go to that clarity aspect, much like you just described with clarity on strategic plan, clarity on mission, vision, values, the same thing is true on the athletic metaphor side of this, right? If we have a great game plan, we know what role each teammate is going to be playing, we are more likely to be successful. If that teammate knows the expectation going into the game, and we have that across the board, our odds of success go up exponentially. So going within, reflecting, 1, 2, are you clear? Is the coach, you, the leader, clear on expectation, on role, on what good looks like? That's a huge piece of what we're trying to accomplish. The third aspect that you and I work teams through, Amy, and this, I'm thinking about, Amy, right now, is the book that you and I both love, $1 Trillion Coach by Bill Campbell. And so many quotes, so many nuggets from that book speak to exactly what we're talking about. But, the third piece being confidence. Are you instilling confidence into the team? So once again, this is step 3 in getting better results through others. Are you empowering that player to play their best? The best players, the best teams don't play scared. They play confident. So the question is, are you bringing that confidence into that team?
You're absolutely right, and yes, you hit the nail on the head. Probably my number one book, as you know, Chris, with describing the life of Bill Campbell. And one of the things that has always resonated with me, that I love the most about those that really reflect on their time with him, is how much he always preached: you have to love your team. You
Mm-hmm.
have to love your team. And when you bleed into your team and you show them that respect, and that you're really buying in and you're leaning in hard with them, um, you will directly see those results,
Yeah.
and they feel that.
Yeah.
um, there's a level of engagement that every leader needs to be very authentic
Mhm.
with. And I think that individuals can sniff it out when it's not real, right? When
Yeah,
it's not
for sure.
authentic. And so, love your team. It's probably made up of, a very diverse array of personalities, genders, ages,
Yeah.
educational backgrounds. All of that lends to the success of the team, right? So get to know them and lean in
Yeah.
and love them, because
Yeah.
ultimately it will make them more confident in what they're
Right on.
doing. And,
Well
celebrate
said.
them along the way as well.
That's right. And that is an absolute tried and true methodology for instilling confidence.
Mhm.
And it takes us to a really nice and clean segue into coach them up, which is the fourth aspect of this. And coaching them up means that you've got to be able to have coaching moments. You literally have to be honest as a default. You have to be truthful. You have to be inspiring. But you've got to be able to make sure that you can have the kinds of conversations that create learning, that create improvement. Right?
That's right.
It's when you start training camp at the beginning of a season, you don't expect everything to be worked out as much as you would as you get towards the later end of the season in the playoffs. The same thing is true organizationally. You need to be able to coach them up. Coaching them up does not mean just being the cheerleader or the critic. It means
That's
drawing out in them the very best, helping them see what they may not see, helping them understand what is versus what could be, and closing the gap. So coach them up, right, is something I hear you say often.
Yes, coaching is the number one, I would say, differentiate differentiator between
Mhm.
a successful leader and a leader that eventually it catches up with them, right? I
Mhm.
was talking to, an amazing client of ours that we're working with on a regular basis later last night. And, he is one that really checks in with his team, right? He knows them better than they know themselves, right?
Mm.
And he is trying to lean in and give them all the tools that they
Mm.
need to be able to help themselves, right? He knows he can't do it for them, but he is incredibly supportive. He's on calls with them frequently and often. And he is sitting down and not only getting to know them personally, but also checking in where they are in terms of their performance
Mm.
consistently. So it's not a meet at the beginning of the year in Q1 and then, oh, by the way, it's December and
Yeah.
it's review time. So you're sitting down, for an hour having that, deep dive into, were you successful or not successful? That is not
Yes.
a great leader,
Right.
right?
No.
And that's
No.
certainly not setting a teammate or potentially your future leadership team in the organization up for success, right?
Right. Right.
People need to know where they stand at all
Yeah.
times.
100%.
And they don't necessarily need a pat on the back every week,
Right.
but they do need to understand how the expectations that you have are being met or they're being missed, right?
Right.
I call it the
Yes.
feedback loop, right? People probably always heard the feedback sandwich, give them something good, hit them with something constructive, give them something good to sandwich it in. And I think that's so important. Number one, feedback is very hard to receive, and it's also very hard to give. But the more frequent as a leader that you're giving that feedback, the more you're developing them on a daily, weekly basis, whether you realize it or not. And that takes, I think, precedent over any class you could ever put a leader in. It's just the individual time that you spend with them, giving them feedback so they are aware of their behaviors and how they are performing on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, well said. And there's a great reference, the most recent podcast from Adam Grant's Rethinking speaks to this very thing about feedback. It's a worthy listen. So Rethinking by Adam Grant, take a listen. It's his most recent office hours podcast. So we're going to wrap it up, Amy, with talking about the fifth element of results through others, which is deliberate practice. And so one of the things that we see so often among leadership and management teams is that they understand the concepts, they're clear on the process, but then guess what? We don't practice. And what does that yield? Zero results. You need to be able to change behavior, to change habit, to change mindset. And so the act of deliberate practice means ensuring you are having the necessary conversations, you're doing the necessary reflection, you are focused deliberately on getting the better result through other. It can't be simply a theory. It has to be built upon the foundation of hard work, which is in the practice. So that's the encouragement. And I'll give you the final word on that, Amy, before I wrap us up, is that you've got to be able to work into your calendar the deliberate practice in order to be better at getting results through others. You have to do it.
That's right. And think about going back to the coaching theory, right? Teams practice every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, right? And so if you think about, how you're operating and running your leadership team, practice should be a constant. It should be an everyday part of what you do, whether or not you're thinking about it. Eventually it becomes fluid. It just becomes a natural state of how you operate as a leader. But practice is the most important component to continue to drive forward and to make sure that you're being effective and you're growing your business.
Well said. That's a brilliant way to bring us to close. And as we wrap up, we would just encourage you to subscribe on YouTube to our Art and Science of Leadership podcast. We would also say that just remember, our crystallized intelligence comes from 4 pillars. We want to make sure that what you're hearing from us is not only tangible and relevant, that it can be put into practice, but it's also steeped in 4 pillars of learning. Empirical data, our own experiences, organizational and development research, neuroscience, and timeless wisdom. And so those 4 elements form the foundation of our experience and our synthesis of information to make it accessible to you, because it very much is the art and science of leadership. So we look forward to bringing you some more nuggets, some more learning, some more tangible and actionable process and tools. Until next time. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Chris.